I mean, it really sets us up to transition well into talking about different kinds of data that relates to medications. So they're, like RX norm or NDCs, and they all sit within the larger context of entities that through which a lot of this data moves. So I would love to have you reflect on what you know about sure scripts and PBMs without going down too many rabbit holes. Just high level overview.
Absolutely, super critical. We think about like information exchange in healthcare. Again, this is very U.S. centric, but claim information from provider to payer is is a huge proportion of, like, if we were conceptually to say, like, over a given period of time, how many bytes of information is transmitted from provider or transmitted in the healthcare ecosystem overall, insurance claims would be a big chunk. I think images are sort of overrepresented because they're large data sets, right? The DICOM files are huge, but so maybe that's not the right measure as bytes, but actually, let's say requests or documents that move. In any case, we've been talking about the insurance claims. They're very important. But another category of data moving over interchange rails is medication and pharmacy data, right? There's the claims that come with that for sure, but there's just the order itself. So how does an order for a medication go from safely, reliably go from a provider to a pharmacy? Because this happens all the time, right? This is one of the predominant therapeutic interventions in the US, is to prescribe a medicine. And typically, the patient will then go to, used to be, and in some cases still is, patients physically with you in your office, and you physically give them a piece of paper. And then they physically go to the pharmacy, they hand it to the pharmacist. Pharmacist looks at it, dispenses a medication. So like that, still happens for sure. But much more frequently now it's electronic. And so, I think we all may take it for granted that, like, oh, sure, yeah, I send emails electronically. Why wouldn't I? What's the mystery behind sending e-prescribing messages to pharmacies? Now, it's actually quite incredible uh, that we have a national e-prescribing network that works as reliably as it does. And so that network is run by an organization called SureScripts. And in fact, they just recently settled um, a lawsuit for anti-competitive behavior. They are a monopoly. And again, they settled. So they have, I think part of the terms of the settlement is they have some new reporting obligations. It's not top of mind for me, but like, you can see this is a recurrent theme, is lack of competition in healthcare, right? Like, this is, from an economist perspective, that would be like the bird's eye view. Is like, look at U.S. healthcare, be like, there's not enough competition, like at every level. And this is one of or another case of it. So now the suit was settled and SureScripts is not broken up, in part because I think they're in antitrust or anti-competitive cases. There has to be a theory of harm on how the monopoly harms the consumer. And if you can't show the harm, then it's sort of like, well, we should just regulate the monopoly more, right? And so those are the interventions that FTC has available to it. Kind of helps. My brother's an antitrust economist, which is, we've talked about this at length, but we do get benefit, I'll say, from SureScripts as a monopoly. And I'm going to contrast this to labs. So, and we'll get into more of the RX norm and NDC stuff here. But with medicine and transferring or transmitting medication data from provider to pharmacy, the standard is called, this is going to be a new one for a lot of people. It's called NCPDP script. So NCPDP is the organization, something, something, pharmacy, something, and N is national for sure. And then script is the name of the actual standard. and it's a bear. It takes at Canvas, my company, we implemented this from scratch back in like 2016, and we've had to update it. But if you want to transact digitally and send medication data, you have to get certified by SureScripts and you have to be part of the SureScripts network. And then you send on SureScripts, you send messages that are formatted as NCPDP script messages. So those payloads that, we're currently still on module 3 with the end of module 3 on connections. So these are all APIs between EMRs or e-prescribing software and pharmacy software. The sort of object or the car that's like traveling down that highway is NCPDP script message. Okay, so that's how it works, and SureScripts manages the routing, and they have a thing called an SPI, which is a SureScripts prescriber identifier, and this is like a key concept that manages how things get routed, and it's very important, and it works really well. Like that's the thing, is that this is amazing. You can prescribe like to any pharmacy, essentially, and there's great benefit to providers and to patients in having a national system that works reliably. And if we compare it to labs, for example, we do have in some sense a duopoly with Quest and LabCorp. There's many, many regional labs, many hospital-based labs. So duopoly is too strong of a statement. We have two major predominant players, kind of like you have Epic and Cerner and inpatient EMRs. We have like many others. There's Quest and LabCorp, and then there's like hundreds, probably thousands of reference labs across the country, mostly associated with hospitals and health systems. But you cannot just pick from a catalog of labs in the country and just send lab orders. Like it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because there's no analogy to SureScripts. There's no national network of labs. There's companies that are investing, Health Gorilla is an example, network of labs, and but it's just not there yet. And so anyway, that's what SureScripts is. Now, interesting question, how do they do it? How, right? It's such a feat. It's owned by the PBMs, controlled by the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit manager. So it's a consortium of PBMs that came together to say, hey, it would be good for everyone if e-prescriptions just worked really well all the time. And so let's like make this happen. And in this case, I think it is actually net positive. I think as long as we regulate it well, it's a net positive. So, why couldn't we get a network of lab like Quest and LabCorp come together and work on I don't know. Maybe the power's not there. It's sort of like I get over my skis on like the incentive systems in place, semi-hidden incentives perhaps around like how these things work. But that's SureScripts. That's the role that PBMs have played, a positive role, my assessment, in making e-prescriptions work seamlessly. There is another part of this. So I want to talk about RX norm and NDC and medication data. So interestingly, there's no charge to sending ERX data or even to getting certified as to be part of the Sure. And the SureScripts does more than just sending ERX, new RXs, or changing RXs, which are this like the category of message format. They also do things like medication history, formulary and benefit information. They do a lot. There's no charge for that stuff. Well, what you have to do if you want to transact on the SureScripts network, you have to buy proprietary data from another vendor. And there's a list of commercial vendors. You cannot simply use RX norm data. Like RX norm, so for folks, RX norm is a free open standard characterizing medication information. It's more than just prescribable substances with PSN, prescribable substance name. It's like components, ingredients. It's got a lot. It's a complex structure. And so theoretically, you should be able to describe a prescribable medicine and the associated information around the instructions on how to take it, et cetera, using RX norm. That is not allowed on SureScripts. It doesn't work. You have to buy proprietary commercial data from one of a set of vendors. For example, Metaspan, for example, First Data Bank, which is from Hearst. For example, Cerner Multum is another vendor of this information. And there's a good argument for it. One argument is that the data itself is like, it's so much more than what RxNorm has. Like they all have drug interaction, or drug allergy interaction data. They have weekly updates. So at Canvas, we use First Data Bank, and there's like weekly updates to the data. There's a lot of work that goes into keeping these things up to date. But you have to, in some sense, you're like forced again to buy from a small set of competitors to be able to transact. And so it's one step away from SureScripts, but it is sort of like if you're in that group of vendors for medication data, it's like a captive buying audience. And then the fees there are not one time, like they are dependent on scale, and it's a significant source of revenue for these folks. It doesn't have to have RxNorm data in it, but you can sort of, as a health IT developer, you can pay extra to get what's often branded as like an interoperability package. And then that will take the proprietary data, so the Cerner Multum ID for a medicine, or the First Data Bank ID or the Metaspan ID, and then map it to RxNorm information so that you can then produce these interoperable, because you can imagine, think about how this impacts data exchange in the US. Actually, this is a key point. Maybe we can finish on this one. For anyone who's gone through like an EMR migration or received files from like, many folks no doubt are on Epic. And one of the things many folks love about Epic is that you have Care Anywhere and you get information from other Epic systems, and it seems to work relatively well, right? Similar sort of argument to having a regulated monopoly with SureScripts, where like it just works well. The problem with having these proprietary medication databases is like, if I were to send, or if health system A exports data for a patient to health system B, the medication data may be proprietary. And so when you get that med list in and you attempt to reconcile it, there's actually no way to do it without a human carefully looking at the medicine, the name and the dose and the route and the form, etc., and trying to compare and understand, is this a duplicate to what I may have on my record or not? It doesn't, if it doesn't come with RxNorm, it comes with, one system uses Metaspan, the other system uses Cerner Multum. Those things do not crosswalk. And so it prevents the automated interchange or automated merging and reconciliation. And this is actually why in the ONC regulation for for EMR certification, it's actually surprisingly light on the requirements for being able to accept outside records and reconcile or merge them into the record. And this is a huge problem. It's like, it ends up being, for you as a clinician, it's like, if data's coming in, then who reconciles and make sure that it's safe, and how do you merge it? The closer we can get to automation, I think the more value and benefit we can have there, but it has to be safe. And part of the reason it's not safe to do automatically is because we have these proprietary medication databases and we can't automatically crosswalk. So this is sort of a thorn in the side of free flow of information in health IT. So, some positives and benefits, no doubt, from having SureScripts, some costs and risks associated with how the rest of the system works. The last thing we talked about, I think, was NDCs, the national drug codes. Honestly, those are like, every system has to, every message for prescriptions has to include what's called a representative NDC. It's kind of a funny idea. And so that is like a useful way of getting some crosswalk, but it's like insufficient to reliably perform the reconciliation and merging that I talked about. So ideally, everyone would map to a reliable RxNorm code set, and we would have that would be our Tower of Babel, so to speak. Like we would that could translate anything. So system's not quite there, but it's impressive it works as well as it does right now.
Yeah, well, thanks. You really pulled back the curtain, I think, on a lot of these confusing concepts, and I certainly feel like I have a better grasp on how to navigate the acronym soup.